What's going on, Jeromes? We are back in the saddle again. We got some Q's, got some A's. Thank you, everyone who submitted questions. First up is Angel Dutz Sr. Andy, I feel like, try it again. Andy, I feel as though if we can build a bully in the trenches, we would run this division for the next 5+ years. Your thoughts? Yes. And I actually do think that that is part of the plan, because you look at Kwesi and his career started off with the San Francisco 49ers, working in the R&D department. Harbaugh and them, they built a bully of an offensive line. Went to Cleveland. He and Andrew Berry also built a bully of an offensive line. And Kwesi understands that that's where the bread is buttered. Now, you could say there hasn't been a huge investment in the offensive line in terms of capital, in terms of draft capital. Ed Ingram being a second-round pick, whatever. So retaining Brian O'Neill, looking to extend Darrisaw, the running back with Bradbury. I feel like it's more of a we're worried that we can't do better situation. But I love that they're actually having a legitimate competition at the guard spots with Ingram, with Blake Brandel, who they brought back, as well as Dalton Reisner, who they also brought back. So I think we're on the cusp of really retooling this offensive line, because at a certain point, you got to protect McCarthy. First you buy the house, then you buy the insurance. And also, given that the Vikings have just a gang of cap space in 2025, Creed Humphrey one time. That's right. I actually do think that the Vikings will make a legitimate and significant investment along the offensive line, both financially and or draft capital wise, because what else do you really need at this point? So I think the Vikings are going to go hard in the paint along the offensive line. I think Darrisaw will be the crown jewel, the anchor of that O-line. I think that O'Neill has a couple of good seasons left before he starts getting aged out, and they'll go from there. Next, Chile, bro. How high should I draft Aaron Jones in fantasy? Help me, Mandy. You're my only hope. So I'm not like a fantasy expert. I play. I'm very poor, very bad at it. But so ESPN in their PPR running back rankings, they have Aaron Jones at 19. Where did they? Ooh, so I have the screen up. Let's see where they have Ty Chandler. So they have Ty Chandler at 43, just behind J.K. Dobbins of the Chargers and Zach Charbonnet of the Seahawks. So they got Aaron Jones at 19. I know that they're factoring in historically the Vikings haven't really got it done on the ground. Absent the peak years of Dalvin Cook, Kevin O'Connell, he likes throwing the ball. Although there's been a concerted effort, a lot of talk about running the ball more this year. Also factor in the Vikings tier offensive line. Also factor in Jones's age, also his health history, as well as probably going to be splitting time with Ty Chandler. So that all factors in. But I don't know. I just feel like Aaron Jones, he's going to be big value, and probably will end up as like RB 12, 13, somewhere in there. So I would say like 5th, 6th round. I feel like that's fine. Yeah, I feel like that's perfectly fine. Next, Braden Timor. In a blowout situation, winning or losing, would they put McCarthy in just to kick the tires? Yes. I think they absolutely would. Now, if McCarthy doesn't win the QB2 job from Nick Mullins, they would have to carry 3 on the rooster, because you can have your emergency quarterback 3 on the practice squad, but if McCarthy is quarterback 3, you're not going to have him on the practice squad. Like, you're not going to expose him to waivers before you can protect him. That would be stupid. So, yeah, I mean, obviously, if and when Slinging Sam Darnold, future MVP finalist, has the Vikings up by 28 in the 4th quarter. Yes, you are going to bring in McCarthy and run a little something with him, get him some experience to the best of his ability. Next, Shikataru. How will the Vikings special teams compare against the other NFC North teams with the new kickoff rules this year? I predict Kinkene takes 3+ to the house this year. I think they're going to be really good. And I think that one of the largest beneficiaries of the new kickoff rules was Kinkene and Wangu, where you're getting guaranteed returns. And also, I mean, if you just look at the setups, like, even though the NFL rules are slightly different than the UFL, XFL, I mean, if you make one guy miss, you're gone. And that's what's really going to be exciting about it. And I do think that Coach Hatt, Coach Daniels, Viking special teams coordinator, he is one of the brightest special teams minds out there. Learn from the best in John Bones Fossil. And I think that he is going to get King Kene in great spots to make some big-time plays. And also I think that the Vikings are going to do good covering it because of guys like Theo Jackson, because of guys like Kamu Grugier-Hill, because of Najee Thompson, because of stud key special teamers like that. So I think the Vikings are going to be really good to go with the new rules. Lastly, I'm from the year 3000. What happens if Darnold suddenly lives up to or even exceeds his draft stock and balls out? Or I don't mean a good year. I mean like he goes off. Is it a future of the organization controversy? It would be a very good problem to have. And I mean, the Vikings have to make a decision. But like I said, it's a great problem to have. Now, if and when Sam Darnold balls out, which I actually think that he will. I think that Sam Darnold has a golden opportunity with the weapons here, with the coaching, with Darisaw, etc., to really pan out on that potential. And I think that he has a chance to be one of the most improved players in the league. And the Vikings, I mean, even if and when McCarthy looks good in training camp and preseason, and you have him on the back burner, and the plan is to redshirt him this year with Darnold taking up that spot as a bridge quarterback. If Darnold plays like a top 10 quarterback, again, it's a good problem to have because the Vikings, a lot of options here. They could franchise tag him. They have the cap space to do that. They could give him a small extension, which they do have the cap space to do that. Although, I mean, Darnold could be in a spot too where if he plays extremely well, like if he has a Baker plus, if he has a Geno 2022 plus type season, he could be looking for a similar deal as them, a 3-year deal with upper mid-level money. Not anything stupid like Jared Goff or Trevor Lawrence money, but something decent. But the Vikings could decide to run it back one more year with Sam Darnold and see if it wasn't a fluke. And I mean, because if Sam Darnold plays like a top 10 quarterback, even though the Vikings have a young rooster, and if this defense shapes into form the way that we expect it to, I mean, the Vikings would be in legitimate playoff and potentially Super Bowl contention. And that's not hyperbole. That's legitimate, right? And it'd be a tough decision because if you have a top 10 quarterback and Darnold is still young, like, do you just give up on him? Of course, you could tag and trade him. And if the better Darnold plays, the more you'll get in draft compensation, sure. And then just turn the keys over to J.J. McCarthy. That's a big leap of faith because at the end of the day, you're looking for a good young quarterback, and Darnold could check those boxes. And it could be a spot, too. Like maybe it's a Joe Montana, Steve Young situation where Montana and Young were together for several years in San Francisco. And Steve Young was almost 30 before he really took over the reins with the Niners, right? And could it be a spot where they do extend Darnold on a 2-3 year deal and McCarthy is sitting for 2-3 seasons before taking over? I mean, Jordan Love sat for 3 years. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 or 4, somewhere in there. But again, an absolutely good problem to have where most teams have trouble trying to find one good quarterback. The Vikings could have 2. And 2 good young quarterbacks as well. But again, I have faith in Sam Darnold, the pride of USC. I think he'll get something done. But that's it. That's Q&A. You guys are the best you know what to do. Skull production value.